I tried to fly, seeing ghosts. I knew I was going to die young. It was in zeros, like binary code.
Yeah, what's going on? How was your childhood coming up? Yes, before the near death experience.
Yes, I was a sick child. I started developing symptoms that would be undiagnosed for a really long time, and they're really weird. I would twitch, my muscles would cramp, I had nerve pain, I would tremor and shake a bunch. I wasn't sleeping, and maybe an hour a night when I was young, maybe two, maybe three if I was lucky. And that's really what started this whole cascade of craziness that would happen later is this illness. And the doctors didn't know what was going on. And there was this house that we lived in that I started seeing ghosts, and I started seeing like shadow people, specifically this one that wore a top hat and a cape. Um, I saw inanimate objects move. So like this doll that we had from our great great grandmother glowed, its eyes red. It didn't have any eyes left. Its eyes glowed red and it moved its head towards me. And that was probably the scariest thing I've witnessed. Absolutely terrifying.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so that kind of sums up my childhood, just this weird illness and a lot of paranormal activity. I guess that's on the negative side, but on the positive side, I grew up in a Christian home. So, we believed in God and had Jesus as our savior and went to church. And in my church, it said if you were saved, you nothing can touch you, nothing can harm you. And so I didn't know what to do with these things I was seeing, except for like, okay, no one can hurt me because I'm saved. That was not the full truth at all that we would come to find out.
So, okay, so when you had or when you see these things, did you speak to your parents and how did they take it?
Yeah, I told my mom. I was close. I was always closer with my mom, and my dad was very religious, and he would blame it on me and not having faith. Where my mom would understand and kind of explore what was happening, and also my sister who had a really strong faith system. She saw these things too in this house. And she told my mom. So my mom's in the background, like looking, research, feng shui, and what these things are. Where does it say in the Bible that these things exist? Where my dad would have just been, well, you don't believe, you have no faith. So I told one of my parents.
Wow, wow. I'm asking this because okay, so that when you tend to ask people about this particular their near-death experiences, most people say some of their parents were not very accepting of it, and some of them were very religious. So they, like, just like you are saying, they thought of you in a certain way. They would think of you in a certain manner or in a certain way. Okay, maybe she doesn't have enough faith, or she doesn't have a lot of faith or something. So that is how come I'm asking this question. So let me just ask for your advice based on that as parents, let's say parents who are watching, or parents, myself, I have a daughter, I have a 10-year-old daughter. I'm just thinking if she should come to me today and tell me that these are the stuff I'm seeing. And I remember when she was very little, she used to say certain stuff, but I just used to push it away. So what would be your advice to parents who have kids who are going through or who are seeing stuff like that? What would be your advice to them?
Yeah, my advice, first off, it is not just imagination. Children are especially susceptible to different frequencies and different experiences, and we're usually grown out of it, programmed out of it, cultured out of it, talked out of it. It's, child's play, it's child's imagination. First off, please do not chalk it up to imagination. These things are very real, especially for children.
So what would you advise them to do if they hear their kids talking about this stuff? You want them to do more research into it? What would you want them to do? Yep.
Yeah, so something that really I wish I would have had. So my mom would do research, but not necessarily in how I could protect myself. She was trying to protect the home. She was trying to figure out, feng shui, movement of energy. She was trying to find biblical things. But doing more research on how a child can protect themselves, besides just being saved or believing in God or, praying, and actual learning how to protect your own spiritual energy, I think is absolutely crucial. And in the process, the parent can learn how to do that for themselves as well.
That is amazing. That is amazing because as parents, we tend to, like I've said already, especially we the men. We the men. Anytime our kids will come to us and see some of these things, we just push them aside because the man is usually occupied with a lot of things. When it comes to even having faith about a lot of stuff, men tend not to have a lot of faith in a lot of stuff. Women have different faiths, understanding of things from men. So sometimes it tends to happen. So that is how come I wanted to ask you. So what was the moment where you had a near, like, when was that moment? What happened for you to have that particular experience and know that, okay, this is a near-death experience? What really happened?
Yeah, so all that stuff I mentioned started when I was 10. So I am very, my heart goes out to you and your 10-year-old daughter because everything started when I was 10.
Wow.
And another 15 years of more paranormal experiences. My illness declined. I finally got diagnosed, but they couldn't do anything for me. It was so rare. It was like, we don't know what to do, so good luck. So I knew I was going to die young. I knew I was going to die before I reached 28 years old. I just knew that as a child. I had told my mom. She took me seriously. I didn't know how, but I just knew I was going to die young. And at 25, we hired a spirit release therapist because we found out that there was kids that played with an Ouija board in that house, and it opened up a portal, and that's where all this crazy paranormal stuff came from. And because I was a sick child, I had no energy, I wasn't sleeping, I was scared, because I'm a sick child. I'm kind of scared of everything going on. I was a perfect food source for these dark, low elevated entities. So we hired the spiritual release therapist to detach them from my soul and my body. I was not possessed, but I was oppressed. There's a difference. Possessed means they can control you. Oppressed means they just drain you. For those who don't know. So we start down this road, and on top of my illness, I get a flu-like symptoms because you're moving so much energy. And I was still not sleeping. So I get very, very fatigued. And these things that were attached become aggressive and violent, psychologically and physically. And there was a point where my heart, my soul, my mind, and my body gave up. And I called out to God and said, I can't do this anymore. It's in your hands. And I meant that. I was always told, well, you got to surrender completely. I didn't know what that meant until that moment. And that moment, I surrendered with the very essence of my soul. And in that moment, there was a wave of peace that came over me, and God asked if I was ready. I didn't hesitate to think what he was asking. I just said yes. And in that moment, I felt really 3 hard pounds on my chest, and that's when my heart stopped. And that is the start of my near-death experience.
Wow. So what did you experience? Because some of us have not had this experience. So we want to know what happened when when you had this particular experience? What were some of the things you saw, some of the things you experienced when it happened, actually?
Yeah, instantly I was completely gone from Earth, this body, this concept of Brie or Brianna, and I was in pure blackness. It was just dark and black, but full of energy. And that energy was love, and that energy was the basis of creation. And in that energy, I was with God, and I didn't see him, I felt him. And I didn't know what had happened. My consciousness just knew something drastically had changed. And so I kind of thought, am I dead? And out of the darkness, these three monks appear. They kind of look like they're Tibetan, and they just smiled and laughed, didn't say anything, just cross-legged, floated on by, just laughing at me. And I didn't understand why for a really long time. But I just thought I was curious. I didn't feel judged. I didn't feel bad. It was just kind of, oh, okay, that's curious. And they floated back into the darkness. And that's when I ended up in my tunnel. And I went through this brilliant, bright blue tunnel. It was so bright blue, it was almost white. And in the tunnel, there was ones and zeros, like binary code.
Yeah.
And as I'm going through it, I know I'm being downloaded with information, and I don't know what the information is. I just know it'll come to me later. I end up in another room that was really white, or space that was all white, except for giant black numbers on the floor in front of me. And I grab them and throw them up because I realized, oh my gosh, the universe is created in math. And I thought that was amazing, which is funny because I'm not even a huge math nerd or anything, but I thought it was amazing that the universe is created with math. I then ended up with other beings, and I say beings because I don't know if they were ever human. They didn't have human bodies, but I just don't know what they were or who they were. And in this place, I spent a majority of my experience in, and my thoughts would instantly create reality. I saw beings sliding down trees covered in snow, had the thought, I don't like snow. I'm from Colorado in the middle of the US, so we get a lot of snow.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't like snow. It's too much snow. So instantly the snow turned to lush green forest, and I was sliding down the trees and realized we could all have our own reality together, like independently, but together.
Yeah.
I tried to fly, and I was really bad at it. And I ended up severing. I ended up severing my arm on looked like a utility pole. But there's no pain, there's no fear. So it's just like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen, because my arm is just kind of floating there, and I see it grow back with binary code, of course. So that place was just really experimental. It was really fun. I communicated. I danced with these other beings in unison as if we had choreographed a dance for a million years. It was so perfectly in sync. It was just really fascinating. But there was no fear, no judgment, no pain, very specific, no pain. Then a lot of them crossed through a fence, and I wasn't given a choice to go or not. I knew they were going somewhere amazing. I couldn't see, but I knew I couldn't go with them. And then I end up in the last part of my experience where there are 7 magnificent beings behind me. I don't know who they are, but there's this scroll in front of me, and beautiful, sparkling golden script. And it is amazing information. And that's when my human ego came back and said, you're showing this to a human. And just like that, the script went away. It was erased from my memory. It rolled up, and that's when I re-entered my body.
Wow. So when that happened, did you see your body leave? Did you see your soul leave your body?
Nope. I was just here 1 second and completely gone the next. There was no like slow transition or feeling or anything. It was just my heart stopped and I was gone.
Wow. 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 So after your near-death experience, you came back, when your soul came back to your body, what was like? Were there people around you? What were they saying? Did you tell anybody? What did they say about it and everything? Yeah.
Yeah, so my parents knew I was really sick, so they had flown down to see me. And I was telling my mom about this experience because she had been praying with me like the 3 days, 2 weeks leading up to it.
Yeah.
So I was telling her, I didn't know anything about near death experiences or out of body experiences or any of this, like people call woo woo stuff. And so I'm telling her about this experience, and she knows about near death experiences. She's researched them. So she knew her grandmother had 3 near-death experiences.
Okay.
And so yeah, she had a little bit more knowledge, and she read Raymond Moody's Life After Life, and her mom was kind of interested in the spiritual stuff. Um, so she's just like in the back of her mind as I'm talking, she's just like, this girl had a near-death experience. So she told me, and I didn't really believe it. I was like, well, no, maybe no, I don't know. At the same time, everything was really freaky. The walls felt really solid, and my body was a sausage casing, and I'd just been shoved in there, and I felt just really uncomfortable. And then I could hear people's thoughts and feel people's pains.
Wow.
So, I was kind of thinking, okay, something happened. And when I came back to my body, my consciousness once again moved something, and that I had died. So I was positive it had been 2 months and I had been buried, and
Wow.
I was going to open my eyes underground. So because of that, I was like, okay, maybe. But it was this back and forth with myself, for a while.
Wow. 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 So now you've had a near-death experience. You've told it to your mom, but she has more experience, or she has heard a lot about it already, so she understands what is going on with you. Did you tell any of your friends? How did they take it?
No.
Didn't tell anyone.
I didn't tell my friends. I didn't tell anyone for a really long time. Yeah. I told my mom and my sister because they've had experiences. My mom's helped us through them. And then I didn't tell my friends. I didn't really have a lot of friends either. So I was really quiet on it for a while until my mom suggested I go to IANS, which is the International Association for Near-Death Studies. Okay. And they were having a conference a year later. So she suggested I go and meet other people who have this experience. Mm. And so I go. And my sister joins me because she's amazing and super supportive. Yeah. And we go to a conference and we hear tons of near-death stories. But, there's people who meet their relatives that have died. Yep. There's a life review. God is so, they see him, but his face is so bright and shiny. No one talks about this void I was in. There's, these pearly marble buildings. And so none of them sounded like mine. Yeah. And so that it was like, okay, these things are real, but mine doesn't sound like that. So did I have one? But so, I told people there at the conference who were open to, this, that's why they're there. I kind of start trying to talk to some friends about it for the next couple years, and just got really weird reactions. Like, okay, no one was mean. No one shut me down. No one was rude or called me crazy. But you could tell they're just like,
okay.
Okay. Okay.
Believe that your near-death experience has changed something about you. Do you believe that?
Oh, absolutely. A few things is, as a sick child and the church and family questioning if I had faith or if I believed, and if only I believed stronger that I would get better, and then I didn't, and so I went through this spiritual battle for 15, 20-ish years. When I finally came to accept my own experience and what had happened and what I witnessed and what I saw, I drew a lot of lessons from that. And I met God, or whoever you want to call him.
Yeah,
And no longer does somebody else's judgment of my faith have an effect on me,
sure,
because I've experienced it on a way I can't even describe most of the time.
sure,
So my faith and my spirituality has definitely strengthened and changed drastically.
sure,
My understanding of reality has drastically changed, and understanding, we can live some really hard, painful things in our life. For me, it was illness,
sure.
but there's a lot of people who go through awful things. Poverty, starvation, abuse,
Mm.
you name it, war, you name
Yeah,
it. But I've seen not only my own experiences of the reasons behind that, but now
yeah,
I'm part of the near death community, that there's a ton of people who have had these experiences that report why exactly there's such hardship in our world and what we're meant to learn from it. So that has drastically changed me as well.
okay, all right. That is amazing. My next question would be that, okay, have you had any sort of miraculous healing? Any healing? Yes.
Yes, yes, I sure did. So I really went on kind of a quest after my near death experience. Once I accepted it, I mean, until you accept what you went through and can say, okay, this was something that happened, let's
Yeah.
dive in. Until you're ready to do that, there's not much you can do. But once I did that, I had space and the opportunity to go on some big learning quest. And for me, that was really studying more into meditation and the power of prayer, the power of meditation, the power of hypnosis.
Mm.
And I went to a meditation retreat, and the person who's leading it is describing this darkness. It's nowhere. There, you have no body. There's no time. There's nothing there.
Mm.
But yet, all possible. It's actually because it's everywhere, everybody, every time, every place. And he's talking and describing this place, and was like, "Oh my gosh, that is the place I first hit when I had my near death experience. It's
Mm.
the place of all possibilities." And so I was like, I can get back there without having another, crazy near death experience or tragedy. And so the second day of this retreat, I got back to that blackness, and in it, parts of my tunnel that I knew would come through eventually for an important reason came and rewired my brain. And like I said, it was a neurological movement disorder. So it
Mhm.
came in and rewired my brain, and I healed that instant.
Wow. Wow.
But that is directly related to my near death experience.
Wow.